Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep into some excerpts from Psychology by David G. Myers.
Yeah,
It's all about human behavior, the stuff we do, why we do it,
right.
and what's going on in our brains while it's all happening.
It's like a backstage pass to your own mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this book covers so much ground we're talking about.
Yeah.
How sleep impacts learning,
Uh,
how cultural differences play out even in things like where babies sleep, and
wait.
even why we yawn and why it's sometimes contagious.
Yeah, we even have some pretty interesting research on the link between breastfeeding duration and intelligence later in life.
Oh, wow.
Prepare for some serious dinner table debates after this one.
I can already imagine this is going to be good.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with something everyone can relate to, sleep. What did Myers have to say about how it affects our brains?
Well, Myers argues that sleep is like hitting the save button on your brain.
Okay.
While you sleep, your brain is busy organizing and storing all the information you've taken in during the day.
Interesting.
It's crucial for memory consolidation.
So instead of pulling an all-nighter before a big presentation,
Right.
I should actually prioritize a good night's rest.
That's what the research suggests.
Okay.
It might seem counterproductive, but studies show that students who get enough sleep actually perform better academically. Their brains have had the chance to properly process and store information.
That makes sense. I've definitely had those mornings where I feel like my brain is running on fumes after a late night.
I know, right?
So how does this tie into sleep disorders?
Well, sleep disorders like insomnia, narcolepsy, sleep apnea can really throw a wrench in that whole save button process.
Yeah.
They disrupt our sleep patterns and can lead to problems with concentration memory, even our physical health.
Wow.
Myers really emphasizes the importance of addressing these disorders.
So it sounds like sleep is even more important than we realize. It's not just about feeling rested. It's about our brains functioning at their best.
Absolutely, and this leads us to another fascinating area where our mental and physical health intersect: psychotherapy.
Okay.
A lot of people wonder if it really works.
Well, does it? Is talking about your problems actually enough to make a difference?
Myers cites a lot of research, including a large study from Consumer Reports that shows psychotherapy can be very effective for a range of mental health issues like depression, anxiety, PTSD.
Interesting.
It's not just about venting. There's a real science to it.
So there's actual evidence to back it up.
Uh,
What's interesting is that there are different types of therapy, right?
Right. Myers points out that certain types of therapy work better for specific conditions.
Okay.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, is known to be very effective for anxiety and depression, while trauma-focused therapy is often used for PTSD. It's like finding the right tool for the job.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about sleep and how it's crucial for our brains to function well. We've also seen how therapy can be a powerful tool for addressing mental health. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about cultural differences.
Sure.
You mentioned something about how babies sleep in different cultures.
Yes, Myers talks about a study that looked at how infant sleeping arrangements vary across cultures.
Oh, okay.
Some cultures encourage babies to sleep in their own rooms from a young age, while others practice co-sleeping, where babies share a bed with parents or siblings.
I've heard about co-sleeping. It seems to be a hot topic these days.
It is.
So what's the big deal about where babies sleep?
Well, the study suggests that these different sleeping arrangements might be connected to cultural values about independence.
Interesting.
Cultures that emphasize early independence tend towards separate sleeping arrangements, while those that value interdependence often favor co-sleeping.
It makes you wonder if one way is better than the other. Is there a right answer?
That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Myers doesn't say one way is definitively better. He emphasizes that different cultural practices have evolved over time, often reflecting specific needs and beliefs.
I see.
What's important is to understand the cultural context and respect different approaches to child rearing.
It's a good reminder that there isn't always a one-size-fits-all approach to human behavior. Speaking of surprising connections, let's move on to something that always makes me wonder: contagious yawning.
Yes, the mystery of the yawn.
Right.
We all do it, but why?
Exactly.
Myers says scientists are still trying to figure that out completely.
Really?
Some theories link it to regulating brain temperature, others to boosting alertness, and some even suggest it's a form of social communication.
Okay, so yawning itself is already a bit of an enigma, but why is it contagious?
Right.
Why do I suddenly feel the urge to yawn when I see someone else doing it?
This is where it gets really interesting. The contagiousness of yawning is thought to be linked to empathy.
Okay.
Our ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Research has shown that people who score higher on measures of empathy are more susceptible to catching yawns.
So if I yawn and you yawn back, it means you get me.
It's one way to look at it.
That's kind of cool.
But here's where the autism connection comes in. Researchers have observed that children with autism who often have difficulties with social interaction and empathy are less likely to exhibit contagious yawning.
Wow. That's a fascinating link. It
Yeah.
makes you think about the intricate workings of the brain and how they influence even the simplest of actions.
It does.
Okay, before we all start yawning uncontrollably, let's move on to another intriguing topic: breastfeeding and intelligence.
This one often sparks a lot of debate.
I bet.
Myers cites research indicating a positive correlation between the length of time a baby is breastfed and their cognitive abilities later in life.
So are you saying that breast milk is some kind of brain-boosting superfood?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
Myers is very careful to point out that correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right.
There could be other factors at play, like socioeconomic status or the overall quality of the early childhood environment.
So while breast milk might have its benefits, we can't definitively say it's the sole reason for higher intelligence later on.
Exactly. It's more likely a combination of factors, with breastfeeding potentially playing a supporting role.
That's a crucial distinction to make. It reminds me of the whole nature versus nurture debate.
Uh-huh.
How much of who we are is determined by our genes and how much is shaped by our experiences.
Precisely. And that brings us to another area where those two forces intertwine: the impact of stereotypes on our intellectual identity and performance.
This is a big one, especially in today's world. What exactly does Myers say about stereotypes?
Well, he delves into this concept called stereotype threat, where individuals feel at risk of confirming negative stereotypes about their social group.
Okay.
This fear can actually hinder their performance, especially in academic settings.
So you're saying that just being aware of a negative stereotype about my group could actually make me perform worse.
It's a powerful example of how societal biases can impact us on a subconscious level. Myers cites research by Claude Steele, where African-American students who were told a test was a measure of intelligence performed worse than those who were told it was just a problem-solving exercise.
That's unsettling, but also really important to note. It highlights the need for creating learning environments where everyone feels supported and valued, regardless of their background.
Absolutely. This knowledge is crucial for educators, parents, anyone who interacts with young people.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of all this.
We have. There's much more to unpack, and I can't wait to share some incredible stories with you next time.
Oh, I love a good story. Stick with us. For part 2 of this deep dive into the human psyche, you won't want to miss it. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our exploration of human behavior and psychology based on your excerpts from Psychology by David G. Myers.
Yes.
Last time we left off talking about the power of stereotypes.
Right.
Now I'm ready for those incredible stories you mentioned.
Okay, buckle up, because this one is wild. Remember how we were talking about nature versus nurture? This story really digs into that. Myers talks about this experiment with domesticated foxes
Okay.
that began in the 1950s in Russia.
Domesticated foxes. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This scientist, Dmitry Belayev, wanted to study the process of domestication.
Okay.
So he started breeding silver foxes,
Okay.
but he specifically chose the ones that were most tame and friendly towards humans.
So he was basically trying to create a super friendly breed of fox.
Exactly. But here's the fascinating part. Over several generations, these foxes didn't just become incredibly tame.
Yeah?
They started to change physically, too.
Wait, what? Like, how do they start fetching newspapers and wearing little dog collars?
Not quite, but their fur changed color, becoming more spotted.
Oh, wow.
Their ears got floppier, their tails started to curl, and some even developed dog-like barking patterns.
Whoa, that's crazy. It's like they were evolving into dogs right in front of the researchers' eyes.
It does make you wonder.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Belayev's research showed. Selecting for certain behavioral traits can lead to unexpected physical changes.
So interesting.
There's a deep connection between genes and behavior.
This is blowing my mind. It makes you think about the domestication of other animals throughout history.
Absolutely. And for me, what's even more mind-blowing is how quickly those changes happened.
Yeah.
We often think of evolution as this super slow process, but Belayev's experiment showed it can occur within just a few generations.
So it's like survival of the friendliest in a way.
Exactly. The friendlier foxes were the ones chosen to breed, and that shaped the entire species. It makes you wonder how much of our own behavior, our personalities, might have a biological basis, but also how much our experiences play a role.
Okay, that was definitely wild. Now tell me about the amnesia case.
All right, this one highlights how crucial memory is to our identity.
Okay.
Myers talks about this case study where a man was found wandering the streets, disoriented and seemingly homeless.
So a classic case of amnesia.
Exactly. He had no memory of his past, not even his own name.
Wow.
But here's the twist. After some digging, it was discovered that he was actually a successful lawyer who had vanished months earlier.
How did they figure that out?
Through medical tests and investigations, they were able to piece together his past.
Oh, wow.
Turns out he had suffered a serious head injury, which led to the amnesia.
So all that time, this lawyer was living on the streets with no idea who he was. That's both heartbreaking and unbelievable.
It really makes you question what makes us who we are if we lose our memories. Do we lose ourselves?
It's like he was living two completely separate lives.
Yeah.
One that he had no memory of, and another that was thrust upon him. It makes you think about how much of our sense of self is tied to what we remember.
That's a great point, and this leads us to another question, just how reliable are our memories anyway?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me they're not as reliable as we think.
You got it. Myers explains that memory isn't like a video recording.
Okay.
Our memories are actually quite fluid and can be influenced by our emotions, biases, even suggestions from others.
So are you saying our memories can be manipulated?
In a way, yes.
What?
Myers talks about research on false memories, where people have been led to believe they experienced events that never actually happened.
Wait, so I might have memories that are completely made up that's a bit unsettling?
It is a bit mind-bending. Myers says that false memories can be implanted through suggestive questioning or even just by imagining something repeatedly.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes our brains struggle to distinguish between real and imagined experiences.
This is making me question everything I thought I knew about memory.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are playing tricks on us.
Well, our brains are incredibly complex and constantly adapting.
Yeah.
They're amazing, but they're not perfect.
No, okay. I'm definitely going to be more mindful of that from now on. Speaking of mind-blowing, what was it you mentioned about a bionic retina?
Right now, this is some cutting-edge science with the potential to change lives.
Okay.
Myers describes research where 6 patients who had lost their vision received implants of a bionic retina. This allowed them to perceive patterns of light and dark.
Wait, are you serious? They were able to see again?
While it wasn't a complete restoration of sight, it was a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
The patients could distinguish objects and navigate their surroundings much better.
That's absolutely incredible. It gives hope to so many people living with vision loss.
It does.
What else did Myers say about this technology?
He emphasized that it's still early days, but the potential is enormous.
Right.
As the technology advances, we might see even more remarkable progress in restoring sight.
This is such a powerful example of how science can be used to improve people's lives in profound ways.
It is, and speaking of powerful forces, we've talked about the brain behavior, even artificial retinas, but we can't forget about the role of hormones.
Right, those little chemical messengers are constantly at work.
They are.
But how do hormones tie into psychology?
Well, Myers explains that hormone imbalances can contribute to mental health conditions, like depression, anxiety, and even aggression.
So if someone's feeling down or irritable, it might not just be a matter of snapping out of it.
Right.
There could be a biological component at play.
Exactly, and this is where the field of psychoneuroimmunology comes in.
Whoa, say that again?
Psychoneuroimmunology.
Psychoneuroimmunology.
It's the study of how our mind, nervous system, and immune system are all interconnected.
Okay, I'm following. So our thoughts and emotions can actually impact our physical health.
Precisely. Myers cites research showing that stress, for example, can suppress the immune system, making us more vulnerable to getting sick.
That's wild. It means that taking care of our mental health is just as important as taking care of our physical health.
Absolutely. Myers emphasizes the importance of stress management techniques, like relaxation exercise and social support for overall well-being. It's all connected.
This is making me think about health in a whole new way.
Yeah.
It's not just about treating symptoms, but about understanding how everything works together.
That's a key takeaway from Myers' work, a more holistic perspective on health and well-being.
This has been such a fascinating journey so far. I can't wait to see what other insights Myers has in store for us in the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of human behavior with Insights from Psychology by David G. Myers. We've covered everything from the power of sleep
to
the impact of hormones and even touched on bionic retinas.
Right.
What else did you uncover in these pages?
Well, we've talked about a lot of internal factors that shape us, but now let's talk about how we connect with others. Myers dives into the psychology of attraction, exploring what draws people to each other.
Ooh, this is juicy. I'm
Yeah.
always curious about the science behind those sparks. What does Myers say makes us attracted to someone?
He breaks it down into several factors:
Mm.
proximity, physical attractiveness, similarity, and reciprocity.
Okay, let's break those down. Proximity, that's basically just being around someone a lot, right? Like seeing them at work or at school every day.
Right. Myers calls it the mere exposure effect. The more we're exposed to someone, the more familiar they become, and that familiarity can breed fondness.
So you're saying that even if you don't like someone at first, just being around them could make you start to like them.
That's what the research suggests. Even if you initially have neutral or even slightly negative feelings towards someone, repeated exposure can lead to increased liking.
Okay, that's kind of wild. But I guess it makes sense. Think about coworkers or classmates you might not have clicked with right away, but over time you've grown to appreciate them.
Exactly. Proximity gives you those opportunities for interaction, for seeing different sides of someone, and that can pave the way for attraction.
Okay, what about physical attractiveness? I have a feeling this one's a bit controversial.
It definitely is. Myers acknowledges that physical appearance plays a role, but he stresses that it's not the only factor. Plus, what's considered attractive is subjective and varies widely across cultures and even time periods.
So beauty is really in the eye of the beholder.
To a large extent, yes, our perceptions of beauty are shaped by cultural norms, media, and even our own personal experiences. What one person finds attractive, another might not.
It's a good reminder that there's no one ideal of beauty. So we've got proximity and physical appearance. What about similarity? I've always heard that opposites attract. That's a common saying, but Myers presents research that challenges that idea. Actually, we're more likely to be attracted to people who are similar to us.
So birds of a feather really do flock together.
It seems so we tend to be drawn to people who share our values, beliefs, interests, even personality traits. Think about your closest friends. You probably have a lot in common.
That's true. We do. I guess it makes sense. It's probably easier to connect with someone who sees the world in a similar way.
Exactly. Shared experiences and perspectives can form a strong foundation for a relationship. Okay, last but not least, we have reciprocity. What does that even mean when we're talking about attraction?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've heard that one before.
Reciprocity basically means we like people who like us back. Goes both ways.
So playing hard to get might not be the best strategy.
Well, a little mystery can be fun, but ultimately showing genuine interest and affection goes a long way. That makes me feel better. So we've got proximity, physical attractiveness, similarity, and reciprocity. Are there any other ingredients in this love potion Myers talks about?
He also briefly mentions the role of humor and intelligence. People tend to be more attracted to those who are funny and intelligent.
So a good sense of humor and a sharp mind are attractive qualities. Good to know.
They can be shears. These qualities can signal social intelligence, creativity, and compatibility, which are all appealing traits.
This has been so insightful. It's amazing to think about all the different factors that go into human connection.
It is complex, but that's what makes it fascinating. It's also important to remember that we've just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to discover about the psychology of attraction.
That's true. This whole deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've explored so many different aspects of human behavior and psychology.
And the best part is you can continue this exploration on your own. Think about how these insights apply to your own life and relationships. What patterns do you notice? What makes you tick?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this deep dive into the human psyche.
It's been my pleasure. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and you'll continue to learn amazing things about yourself and the world around you.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.